If you hear angry meowing in the background, let's just say there's a kitten that's not super happy to be locked up in the bathroom right now. What's up, boys? Somewhat of a serious topic that I'd like to rehash or go over due to Hurricane Milton and the tropical storms that we are seeing on the southeastern seaboard of this country. I've gone over bug out bags, I've gone over daily carry bags, and I've gone over vehicle preparations, but I want to try to narrow this down to weather and inclement weather specific items. This will not feature any sort of firearms. I guess you can include firearms in that. I know some of you may not be old enough to remember, but judging by my audience statistics, most people are old enough to remember what happened during Katrina. Obviously, I would recommend some sort of container carrying case, backpack, duffel bag, something that you can easily man portable carry. So not a huge, not a 70, 80 liter bag, something small, say 30 liter, like a school bag, book bag, small duffel bag. So that can carry all of your items and move in and out of a vehicle. As we're seeing, many people are flocking from Florida on foot because the interstates and highways are completely congested due to traffic. So being able to go man portable is really the only option. And sometimes you will be basically leaving every single thing that you own. So having this packed and not needing to put things in a suitcase or some sort of clunky luggage is what I would recommend. So my first item, seeing as how integrated technology is for the modern man, some sort of carrying case that will waterproof your electronics, at least your cell phone. So you want to get one big enough for a modern smartphone. If you leave a small battery bank inside of it and maybe an extra charging cable, bonus points for that. This one is Pelican branded. They're marine, IP68, so it is water tight, and I believe these have a necklace lanyard that you can wear for whitewater rafting, river activities and such. But this is a great option so that you can keep your communication device dry, especially if you're not using it. Having a lifeline and having the ability to charge your cell phone could mean the difference between good and bad. So communication, protection, charging, and storage all in one. Secondarily, I'd like to recommend at least a change of clothing per person. If you can, try and have them be appropriate for the season or all season appropriate, i.e. don't just put a bunch of booty shorts if it's the middle of winter. Depending on where you are, again, on that eastern seaboard, you could, or western seaboard as well, but that's a whole different story. You could experience full-on different seasons at different times. Obviously, if you're in Florida, don't pack a parka. You're an adult, you understand how to appropriately acclimatize yourself to your surroundings. So yeah, a change of clothing, preferably an appropriate change of clothing, plus wet weather outerwear. So if you can find something like frog togs, they're relatively inexpensive. All wet weather gear, at least a emergency rain poncho, and preferably as well a Mylar blanket, either a sleeping bag like a bivy bag or just a standard Mylar emergency blanket should cover you. There are lots of instances in which a small portable handheld flashlight might be something that is, again, the difference between life and death. If you have children and you're looking for them at night, you get split up, you're moving around, you're making a camp, you're trying to make sure your belongings are gathered at night or crossing water. There's a number of different factors that I would say a flashlight is a life preservation piece of kit. Have an appropriate flashlight. This is just a tiny little AA. However, these are very, very bright. Modern flashlights have gotten ridiculously bright. We're not talking 2D cell mag lights from 1999 anymore. These are relatively inexpensive, and you can get a bunch of them, usually on a sale or a bundle. Some of them have internally rechargeable batteries that work with the same charger as your cell phone, or you can just pack out extra batteries, put them in a plastic bag or two, and carry them with you. However, don't just have one. This one also has a handy feature where you can clip it to the brim of your hat and have a headlamp. Yeah, you kind of look dumb, but it will give you hands-free light. So a flashlight, extra batteries. You could also include an extra charging battery, so you have one for your phone, one for your utilities, however you'd like to do that. A flashlight and batteries / charging. Candles are also extremely a good idea. So, fire making, the 5 C's of survival, fire is always included. So I'm going to wrap candles and fire making into one. I will end up doing a video about fire making in the future. Fire making can be done extremely difficult or made very easy, depending on your level of understanding. My base suggestion would be buy a handful of Bics, leave them in their packaging, wrap the packaging in a plastic bag, and then double over it with a little bit of duct tape. Make it waterproof. You can do cotton dipped in Vaseline as a fire starter. You can get a ferrocerium rod or a magnesium fire starter kit. You can do all sorts of fancy stuff. But for situations like this, just grab a couple cheap disposable lighters. For the most part, they will be relatively inexpensive at the gas station or a smoke shop. These are clippers. They can be refilled. That is why I like them, as well as you can take the flint and striker directly out of them. That is why I suggest clippers over Bics. But Bics are cheap and have started thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of campfires and all sorts of other utility flames. So you can also grab a torch. Whatever works for you, keep it cheap, keep it effective. Don't buy stuff like a 10-in-1 multi-tool. If it does a bunch of things, it probably doesn't do one thing well. So try and remember that mantra if you can. Duct tape, WD-40, bungee cords, and zip ties. I know this sounds dumb, but between those 3 or 4 things, a little bit of rope and a tarp, you can pretty much do anything. You can almost get to Stone Age engineering with those 6 instruments. Not to make light or joke around, this is a very serious topic, but it is true. With those handful of things, you can pretty much build shelter, repair things, make things that are stuck, unstuck. You have most of your bases covered, and with a rudimentary toolkit like something like a Leatherman, doesn't have to be a Wave, it could be whatever Ozark Trail brand from Walmart or a Swiss Army knife. You basically have an extremely strong toolkit that will help you and your loved ones get out of Dodge. You want to stick clear of relying completely on your cell phone, because if cell phone reception towers or the internet is down, you basically have an expensive paperweight in your pocket. Yes, there's still some functionality offline. There's a flashlight on your phone, and it can be used to send rudimentary long-distance SOS communications. Steer clear of depending on your cell phone in an emergency. Most things that are regular in our day-to-day lives during an emergency, those things will be interrupted. So thinking cell phone communications, internet usage, power, transportation, vehicle, or anything, public transportation. So try and remember that. You should know a good in and out route, or rat routes, if you want to call them that, in and out of your city, where it's not huge congested areas that are going to be clogged up with vehicles and people trying to get out of an area. You might not even need to leave your city, depending on what's going on. Cash, I try not to go full, without rule of law, full nut and fancy mode. I'm not asking you to keep ammo and bartering items and goods. However, having a small assortment of small bills of cash in denominations between, at least $200 to $300 up to $1,000 in a pack and ready to go that you only use in emergencies is probably a good idea. Having everything become digitized, or everything through Apple Pay, Google Pay, a debit card, a credit card, can cause issues if everything that a good or a service that can be transferred is relying on a piece of plastic. So having cash can sometimes get you out of binds or help move otherwise difficult to move situations. So a small amount of cash, obviously do not make yourself a target. And if you're capable, and take your life savings or whatever cash you have with you, do that, but don't risk your life for possessions. Possessions are meaningless, and they can always, I understand family photos and stuff, but you could back up your photos and documents and keep them in your weatherproof bag. I know that's not the exact same as having older photo albums, but loss of life is definitely never, it's horrible, but don't risk your health and safety over material items is what I'm getting at. And something to do. I like decks of playing cards. You could maybe throw in, I know this sounds dumb, but you could even get one of these. They sell them on Amazon, you know, between $50 and $100. It comes preloaded, probably illegally, with a bunch of older titles and games. This one had 20,000 games on it. Charges via USB-C, which seems to be the new standard now that iPhone has buckled. And I want to say this was about 60 bucks. It can also have two different micro SD cards in it, so you can boot to a small Linux system if you're tech savvy enough and use this as a communication device, which is cool. That being said, just something to do. Cards, books, something for you to occupy yourself in time where there's downtime or when you're safe. Obviously, people handle trauma and cope with things differently. If you've got children, stuff like this will go a long way, or grabbing, you know, a Switch or some sort of mobile game device is probably not a bad idea, and just leaving it in your emergency bags. And I know that I briefly glossed over this before. Having your documents stored. These are two examples. We've got a Samsung T5 1 terabyte external drive, and then just a cheap Micro Center flash drive. You don't have to go super high tech, just keep a copy of whatever documents you cannot afford to lose off-site or out of the original location in which they're stored. There's a model called a 321. You have 3 copies, and one of them is off-site. Preferably, you can do this through something like Google Drive, Dropbox, or some other online storage that allows you to off-site the data. Obviously, putting certain tax records, social security numbers, copies of your identification, business paperwork, or any really extremely sensitive data, you probably want to keep that on a flash drive that you can keep on your person rather than online. We've already spoke about that to some extent on this channel. However, I feel like these are the wave tops of this situation. You could get extremely, extremely granular recommendations and things. The only really super important thing that I think that I haven't included in this list is medication and a small first aid kit that's capable of big things like sprains, cuts, burns, a tourniquet for stopping bleed, stuff like this. That's pretty basic stuff, but really you want to focus on medications, and you know, if you have allergies or an EpiPen or something that you need, having duplicates of those things. I understand that EpiPens are extremely expensive, but you can, you know, sideload it with Benadryl or some other things if it's not an extremely anaphylactic response to something that they have an allergy to. Over-the-counter prescription or non-prescription medication, having a good stock of those things. Cold and flu, seasonal type of medications, and then obviously anything that you do have that is prescription. So yeah. I'm going to link a couple resources in the description. Obviously, this wasn't extremely explanatory. I just wanted to go over some basics of it. And yeah, I really, really hope that we can get some help to those people down there in Florida and the Carolinas, you know, everywhere that's being affected right now. It's horrific. So I know it's extremely serious. Yeah, don't forget to reach out to your loved ones, people that you know, your friends and family, or around the country, and talk to them. If you know anybody in the affected areas, hopefully they're okay. So, all right guys, that is it for this video, and yeah, I will be back to normal content schedule hopefully soon. I just felt kind of compelled to do this. Yeah, all right guys, catch you in the next one. Peace.